You got my voice through the computer? All right. All right, are we rolling? Hey, everybody. Happy holidays. If I could have your attention for a little while, it's time to begin this evening's meeting of the Madison Astronomical Society. If I could have everyone's attention, please. Good evening, everyone. We are going to start the meeting soon. It's already after 12:15. If I may have everybody's attention, please. I guess I need a gavel or an air horn. Hello, everyone. May I have your attention? We're going to start the meeting now, and after a couple of presentations, it'll be back to the good old chat, free-for-all, and have some fun and all that sorts of great things. It's great to see everyone here for the holidays. This is the December meeting of the Madison Astronomical Society, and I'm the president of the society, Lawrence Moore. We just have a little few announcements to get through, and then we will have a couple of little presentations. Just a quick reminder, everyone, that if you have not sent in your membership dues yet and you're planning on renewing, please mail those in as soon as you can. It's almost the end of the year, so we hope to have lots of people renewing. Back on the piano in the rear of the room, if there are people here who are interested in buying a Madison Astronomical Society logo hoodie, there's a couple of examples in that cardboard box back there. So go back there and have a look. I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure what the price is on those. Maybe 30, 25, 30, I forget. But if you're interested in a hoodie, please contact our secretary, Jurgen, at his email address. He cannot be here tonight. He's having a little bit of a minor thing that he's recovering from, but he's doing A-OK, and he'll be at the meeting next month. And he's also up, in addition for taking orders for hoodies, he's also selling the annual astronomy calendar that's produced by Astronomy Magazine. It's their 2024 calendar, and for $10 each, you can have for each month a calendar that shows a nice astronomy picture and some other astronomy related information in there. So if you're interested in the 2024 calendar, please email Jurgen, and for $10 you can get your hands on one or more calendars. I think there are a few left, about 5 or so left, so now's the time to buy them. For those of you who might be interested in doing a public outreach star party at Yerkes Observatory this weekend, tomorrow, December 9th and December 10th, and then the following weekend, I believe that's on the 15th and 16th, or Saturday. No, let's see. No, it's Fridays and Saturdays. So there's one tomorrow, and then next Friday, and then next Saturday on the 15th and 16th, there'll be public outreach stargazing opportunities at Yerkes Observatory. And then, if you would happen to come by there around 2:30 tomorrow in the afternoon, there's an opportunity for a private tour of Yerkes, regardless of weather. So if you're interested in participating in those things, please contact Dave. Let Dave know right over there, and he'll get you set up. Dave, was there anything else you wanted to say about those events?
Kyle is a past observatory director. And he gave a presentation in 2019. He was actually there last week because UW Astronomy was there. He took us down to the vault, showed us a whole bunch of slides, original pictures, gave a lot of talk. It was unique stuff you would not see otherwise. He agreed to come back this week and do that as well. So it's definitely beyond the standard tour.
That sounds really great. Thanks, Dave.
I can give you a ride if you need one, so. Yeah, we'll just touch base before the end of the meeting.
Or if anyone out there is, watching the live stream and wants to participate, you can always just shoot an email to Dave or even to the observers list and, set up a carpool, something. We should emphasize that getting a private tour of Yerkes Observatory, this isn't something you might want to, think about passing up.
Yeah.
You're not going to get another one of these.
All right. That sounds really great. Oh, yes, question.
What, I just saw this a few days ago. Apparently, they have an exhibit at Yerkes, the world's tallest glass tree. They're announcing it. I don't know what it's all about.
That's the festival we're participating in. It's like a 3-week festival. It's a 3-week festival for the largest glass tree. I don't understand the glass tree thing either. Okay. But as part of it, they're doing stargazing and they're showing off local Southern Wisconsin astronomical organizations, and so that's why they invited us to participate.
It's right out front. It's a large wire tree.
All right.
It's right out front. It's a large wire tree that's about 20-some feet tall, and they got glass blowers who are heating up glass, and they put it against it, and it's turning, and it just does glass filaments all the way around. So last weekend, they were about halfway up the tree. So.
Is it decorated with any stars?
It's just different colored glass. Mostly green, yeah.
That sounds really interesting and really, really worth to see. All right, and if anyone is interested in attending an astronomy lecture coming up this Tuesday, December 12th, right here at UW Space Place, Space Place is presenting a talk called Little Green Molecules: What the Chemistry of Space Can Tell Us About the Life in the Universe, and this is presented by Susanna Whitacus-Weaver, professor of chemistry and astronomy. And I guess, yeah, that she must be a professor at the UW-Madison. And the synopsis is, astrochemists study how certain molecules, which are the building blocks of life, form in the universe and are incorporated into planets. This talk will survey UW-Madison's astrochemistry research program, which incorporates laboratory spectroscopy, observational astronomy, and astrochemical modeling to decipher the chemistry that might lead to life in the universe. And that's coming up at this very UW Space Place this Tuesday at 7 o'clock. For something a little more holiday oriented, if you would like to visit the Madison Metropolitan School District Planetarium, they're presenting the annual Season of Light. And the description is, for those living in the northern hemisphere in the winter months, these winter months are a time associated with struggle against the darkness. In this program, we will explore the seasons as well as the traditions across many cultures that are associated with the season of light in the darkness. And then, as always, they'll also discuss the basic astronomy concepts and also explore the current night sky. And these events are coming up next week, Monday the 11th of December and on Tuesday the 12th. And they have ticketed events at either 6 p.m. or 7:30 p.m. Both nights. And tickets cost $6 in Madison City residents and $9 for non-residents. Are there any questions about any of the announcements so far? All right, very good. And then our next meeting here at Space Place is going to be on Friday, January 12th. John, would you like to say something about next month's presentation?
The January guest speaker is a UW PhD student. And I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I apologize if I get it wrong, but his name is Bob Aliosi, or something like that. Bob is a PhD student. One of the unique things about Bob is that he is one of those people who had a career and then went back to school. So he is an older PhD student. He's not your average 24-year-old PhD student. Bob does exoplanet research, and he's going to give a heck of a talk. January. Don't miss it.
Yes, that's coming up on Friday, January the 12th. Thank you so much, John. That sounds like a really great talk. Alrighty, we've got a few more minutes to spare before we begin our presentations. Is there anyone who's never visited us here at Madison Astronomical Society before? I think everyone looks familiar. Oh yeah, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Brian Champion. You've probably seen some of my work on your Facebook page, so.
Great pictures, great pictures. It's great to meet you, Brian. And so, yeah, so where are you from? Have you
Prairie du Chien.
Prairie du Chien? Have you been around Prairie du Chien for?
Yep, born and raised there.
Oh, how about that? That's really neat. It's great to have you on the other side of the river. It's a pretty. I really love the river valley over there. Is there anyone else who'd like to introduce themselves?
Yeah, my name's Craig Jewell. Been interested in coming up here for a while and finally made the effort. So thank you for having this event.
It's great to meet you, Craig. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Or?
I've been interested in getting into backyard astronomy for a while. Finally got a scope about 2 years ago that was worth using, and I haven't used it yet. My wife said, that thing's turning into a dust collector. So I looked up the other night, is there someone who can show me how to use this? And I discovered your page, and I said, well, I'm going to go there. I'm going to start getting more interactive instead of trying to just think that I'm going to do this someday. So.
Yeah, and what's great, I mean, we don't always have public star parties, but we also have a dark sky site where any time the weather is clear, you can go down there and see people using different types of telescopes and kind of see how they work. And you can even bring your own equipment. If you're a member of the club, you can bring your own equipment and things too. So that's something to explore if this is really, it's an addicting hobby for a lot of us. So it's great. It's great to see you. Nice meeting you.
Hi, Norm Geschko, also from Lake Mills, here with Craig actually, because he said, hey, I've been wanting to come here for a while, and why don't you join me tonight? So I did. But I similarly just been interested in astronomical things for a long time. Don't have my own telescope, but hoping to help Craig dust off his.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, Lake Mills, there's actually kind of a famous telescope builder out there. The wrong brand keeps popping into my head over and over.
Obsession.
It is Obsession, yeah. I always get Obsession mixed up with the other brand of which we have. So yeah, Obsession telescopes, and one of our members owns one of those, and they're really good Dobsonian telescopes. So it's nice meeting both of you. Well, all right, I see it's just about 7:30, or we've got a minute to spare. That clock is just a little bit slower than it was last month. Or it's a bit more accurate than it was last month. Does anybody else have any news or astronomy related news that they'd like to share? Speaking of eclipses, I saw this in the news. If you are living on certain very special places of the planet coming up, and I forget which dates this is going to be, but there is going to be an eclipse of the star Betelgeuse by an asteroid just for a brief few minutes, and I can't imagine how fascinating it must be to see an event like that, but that sounds like a very rare occurrence to have we have quite frequently the moon occulting a star. It's coming up Monday in Miami. Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was, when I looked at it, it looked like all Eastern Hemisphere. Yeah. But, seeing a star occulted by the moon's one thing, but to see a really bright star like Betelgeuse just vanish, that's got to be freaky. But.
Well, we're all waiting for it to vanish anyway.
Yeah, for those of you who are not familiar, Betelgeuse is a very massive red star that in our own solar system would extend past Jupiter in its size. It's extremely massive. It's a lot younger than our sun. It's burning through its fuel very quickly. So people are anticipating that it's going to go supernova at some point. And when it does, I'm sure we'll all be able to see Betelgeuse in the daytime if it happens at the right time of year. So.
Anybody has plans for the April eclipse?
Anybody have plans for the April eclipse? Would care to share? Oh yeah, I don't. I'm just. if anybody wants to talk about their plans a little bit, but it's about 7:30 right now. Oh yeah, yeah.
One question.
Yes, Frank.
My whole family was going to have a reunion in a big house area that we could, in Texas, that we could have 14 people attend. And so this was going to be the biggest family reunion of my time. Anyway, we got screwed out of it. The same thing happened the last eclipse. And my two nephews asked, why did they cancel our hotel reservation? And I said, well, let me explain how it works. Somebody offered them 4 times what you were, and they said, oh yes, of course we have reservations. But anyway, we got a house online through one of those agencies that does this, and they canceled on us a couple months ago. Oh, really? Yeah, because they figured out they could probably get 4 times more money, and if they paid, B&B, the penalty would still make them a lot of money. I was kind of disappointed on that. I think people should keep their word. Anyway, my brother came up to me, and I don't think this is terribly practical, but I'll put it out just in case for some reason enough people would actually want to do this. He says, I have somebody who called me who's one of my customers, and he has a lodge over in Arkansas, right on the eclipse path. And I said, oh, fantastic. And he says, we can have it. And I said, well, that's even better. And I said, how much? He said, I'll get back to you. And then he got back to me. He says, well, it's for 3 days, $1,000 per room. And I said, I don't know how many people would buy on that, if they were really maybe desperate to see the eclipse, I don't know. And there's 10 rooms. So I just want to let you know, if somebody actually thinks that that's something that they'd want to do, you can let me know, and then I can tell my brother and see how many.
Is it 1,000 per night?
It's 1,000 for the 3 nights.
3 nights per room.
3 nights
1,000.
for 3 nights, 1,000.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty reasonable. I booked in Austin, and it is $350 per night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've seen some sites where they're charging that to sit in a tent on their land.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a huge area. I think they use it for hunting and such, but it's not. There's nobody around. And so you'll be kind of out and there's no lights around either. So it probably will get a little bit darker because you won't get as much scatter from the area around, blue sky scatter. So I don't know. If anybody is interested, they can talk to me, and I need to talk to my brother and find out, because we would need to get 10 people to pay for this thing.
Yeah.
So.
And you'll probably need to do it pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly.
Probably just now realizing.
Oh, no. This place knows why we want it, and this is a friend of my brother's. It's a client also. So they're not going to screw around with us. But, so this is for real.
Well, that sounds really neat. Thanks for sharing, Frank. All right, I guess it's a little bit after 7:30, and we'll begin tonight's presentation. I'd like to present to you, everybody, a great friend of the club and a former president, John Rummel.
Thank you. Just one more addendum to that eclipse discussion. There's a lot of buzz starting to happen now because we're less than 6 months away from the event. I'm part of a couple of Facebook groups where people are planning and sharing plans and things like that. And I don't know how many of you use Facebook, but you always have to beware. When people say, oh, I've got a place that's right on the path, never, ever take somebody's word for that, because some of these people have no idea what an eclipse path is. And their sister's neighbor's cousin told them that they were on the path, and so they say, oh yeah, we're renting rooms, and they're not even in the path. I mean, I've seen it happen way more times than I care to confess. So be careful if you make plans based on something that you hear online. Anyway, I'm gonna just quickly start this. This is what we call our annual telescope clinic. It's not working? Sorry about that. It went to sleep, and that may have derailed things. This is a very, very brief presentation tonight. But in the spirit of the fact that it's also kind of our festive holiday party, we're going to start tonight with a poem. Our own Frank Ranello composed a poem, and he asked if he could recite it tonight. So Frank, this is your moment.
Okay, thank you. I didn't actually ask if I could recite it. Somebody asked me if I could recite it. Yeah. So anyway, just to tell you a little background and who I am. I got my PhD in physics here at the University of Wisconsin. I came out here to get it. And then I stayed on as a physics professor. But when I was a senior undergraduate, I had just learned about general relativity, special relativity, and quantum mechanics. And that can do some weird things to your brain when you start learning about that and realizing, oh yeah, things are really weird. Anyway, one night I was sitting at TV, I was watching TV, I was watching a really nice presentation, Midsummer's Night Dream, which Shakespeare. And then I think I'd also had a couple of Heinekens. But right after that presentation, I was sitting down, and I said, oh, I think I should write something down. And I did write this poem, but I don't think it's my poem because this could not have happened normally in a normal fashion. It happened like 10 minutes. I wrote it down, and that was the whole poem, and it never changed anything. The only thing I added later on was the title. So anyway, this is what it is. It's called, the poem also is about, you might guess, beer, quantum mechanics, and general relativity. If you know about general relativity, the first sentence will make a lot of sense to you. Okay. So it's called Ahead of Quantum Foam. Space is time, time is space. We went down to the bar to get a case. The case was full, the brew was cold. It all went down in irrotational flow. Entropy grew greater as time increased, but the fluid motion did not cease. As lines grew curved and points grew bigger, our Schwarzschild warp precessed with vigor. The continuum corked, the mesons quaked, and time transformed into a Hilbert space. Through n dimensions our bodies fell until we hit a potential well. Matrices attacked with vectors and size, but quickly they were diagonalized. We waved through a crystal, but hit a bus and Psi-star waved right back at us. How to get out of this quantum yield of rings and groups and tensor fields? A session was called, and Maxwell decreed. The only solution was e to the minus gamma t. Through integration, the barrier came loose and hurled us through a space-time noose. Axes spun in Jordan's form, and the fabric of hyperspace was torn. But by the charming courtesy of the cosmic cab, we landed back in the physics lab, which in the universe is the only place where space is time and time is space.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
So, by way of introduction, what we mean by a telescope clinic traditionally is that if there are people in our audience or in our membership who are thinking about purchasing a telescope, this is an opportunity for us to do a very brief presentation where we give some advice to you on what to do and what not to do when purchasing a telescope. Because there are some mistakes that people commonly make. So it's a very brief presentation, less than 15 minutes. Because what we want to do after the presentation is we want to break up, and first of all, we want to give you a chance to eat some of the food that's been brought tonight. Thank you to everybody who brought something to share. But we also want to give those of you in the audience who may have questions about a telescope that you own, one of our visitors mentioned that, or the question about the purchase that you're thinking about making, because it's always a good idea to talk to somebody who has already been through that purchasing process. Because, you know, some of the people who made a purchase already regret it deeply, and it benefits you to find out why they regret buying what they bought. Or some people might be very happy with what they purchased, and it benefits you to find out, you know, what they bought that you might want to repeat. Also to find out what people want to do with their equipment, because if I do something different with my equipment observationally than Terry does, Terry might own a completely different telescope and we might both be happy. So there's a lot to be learned. So I want to ask, is there anybody in the audience who fits into that category of, I came with my questions tonight and I'm hoping to get those questions answered. Anybody? Good. Okay, so I'm seeing at least 4 people. So the other thing that I'll ask is just for some of the more seasoned MAS members who are going to answer those questions to also just quickly raise your hand. And you can see some of the people who are putting their hands up. There are several of us in the room that will be more than happy to chat with you, find out what questions you came with, and hopefully start a discussion that's going to answer some of those questions. So that's the purpose of the clinic. So a brief presentation, and after the presentation is over, just that interacting and helping and eating. And again, the presentation will be 15 minutes or less. It's going to be quick. So traditionally, this presentation, because I've done this a bunch of years, and I've also asked other people to do it, so I've had guest presenters on this December night. We traditionally focus on the 2 pillars of wisdom. And many years, the whole message is, don't buy a telescope at a department store. Because there are many people who have Walmart or Kmart telescopes in their closets because they found them impossible to use. They're too wobbly or just whatever's wrong with them. Whatever attractive price or promotional claims that you see in the department store inevitably will turn out not to be true, and you will be disappointed in a department store telescope. So don't buy your telescope from certain places, and many more besides those. Chris?
I just want to say that Costco has a hobby killer on sale right now in the store. So the one at Costco, that's a no-no.
And by hobby killer, Chris means the kind of telescope that will take a burgeoning amateur astronomer and turn that person into a non-amateur astronomer, because it'll be too frustrating. So the other thing is talk to amateur astronomers for the reasons that I just outlined. Talk to people who have made the purchase so that you can find out what mistakes they made and not repeat them. Amateur astronomers are people who know about telescopes, and they follow the news on what new stuff is available, and they'll generally have opinions or stories to share that can help inform a purchase decision that you might be about to make. I'm going to focus tonight on 3 things that you can do. So this is different than the talk that I've given in different years. These are 3 directions, very different directions that you might choose to go, and only one of them involves a telescope, and that's a real kind of a different story. But I'm going to talk first about binoculars. People who know amateur astronomy know that binoculars are a great tool and an unsung tool. One of the great things about binoculars is that you might already have them at home because you bought them for the Badger game or the Packer game, or you're a bird watcher, or just another kind of hobbyist. Binoculars are wonderful astronomical instruments, absolutely wonderful. The whole price range is represented. You can get a pair of binoculars for $100, or you can easily spend $3,000 if you want to. You don't have to spend $3,000. You can get great binoculars for $100 to $200 or up. And if you have a budget, say $300 or $400, you can get a pair of binoculars and a great backyard astronomy guide, a book, or buy an app for your phone. You could buy a planisphere to help you learn the sky, and you could even buy a camp chair so that you're comfortable while you're using your binoculars, and you would still be under a $350 budget. Binoculars are a wonderful option. And if you have a tripod, you can also get a cheap adapter, put your binoculars on a tripod, and your arms won't get tired. And you can also point it at an interesting object, and it'll stay pointed, and you can show the kids and the neighbors. So binoculars are generally my top recommendation for people who are thinking about a telescope. Second option is a star tracker. I've been a star tracker user for many years. This is just an equatorial mount that goes on your tripod. You attach a camera to it, assuming that you already have a camera. The star tracker is very inexpensive, relatively speaking, and it allows you to do tracked photography. You can track the sky to take long exposures. This is a shot I took out in Nebraska a couple of years ago of the Milky Way. Some clouds that night make the shot more attractive. This is a really fun way to get into astrophotography, and it's not that expensive. Star trackers can be had for around $250 to $500. Again, assuming you already have a camera. If you have to buy a camera too, then you're going to add to that cost significantly. But star trackers are a great way to get into astronomy without having to buy a telescope. And the third thing, and I'm going to end with this tonight, is called EAA, Electronically Assisted Astronomy. Every talk that I've given on this topic before, I may have touched upon electronically assisted astronomy only to steer you away from it. There are people out there that make go-to telescopes, very electronically sophisticated, especially in the last few years, that are very gee-whiz, very whiz-bang. They can do everything. They align themselves, they point themselves, and they take pictures by themselves. These things have generally cost in the range of $2,000 to $3,000 or more. Very expensive and very disappointing. This year is different because there is a new device out there on the market called the C-Star. This is very new. It's just hit the market in the last couple of months, as far as I am aware. We have a couple of club members who own these. The cost of this is $500, and I've seen it frequently on sale for $400. It's deceptively small. It's a very tiny thing. It's mostly plastic. The tripod is really cheap, but you can put it on any tripod because it's got a 1/4-inch threaded, tripod head screw at the bottom. But this is a phenomenal, game-changing type of development, and that's why I'm not exactly recommending it, but I'm not recommending it. And I'm going to show you some pictures that have been taken with it. ZWO is the manufacturer. The S50 Smart Telescope. This is basically the intelligence of a smartphone built into a telescope. All you do is set it up, and because it has a cell phone technology in it, it's got GPS, so it knows where it is, down to a few inches on the surface of the Earth. It knows what time it is. And if you basically pointed at the sky and started taking pictures, it'll take a picture of the star field that it happens to be pointed at and do what's called a plate solve, comparing it to the database of stars, and it instantly knows where it's pointed. Now you can use the app on your smartphone and say, go to the Andromeda Galaxy and start taking pictures. And what the C-Star does is it takes, I think, 10-second exposures, maybe 15-second exposures. And so you'll instantly get a picture on your phone or your tablet or your computer or whatever. And you predictably, after a 10 or 15-second exposure, it'll be a very dim, very unsatisfying image. But by the time you're looking at image number 1, it has already taken image number 2, sends that to the phone and integrates it, starts stacking. And if you stack 15, 20, 25 images, pretty soon you've got a picture of the Andromeda Galaxy that will knock your socks off. And you did it in your backyard in Madison with nothing but a few taps on a cell phone and letting this thing do its thing. It is amazing. All-in-one telescope camera, built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, long battery life, smart control, and more. The two members who own it are Carol Santulis and Bonnie Teet. This is the Dumbbell Nebula. So on the left is the raw 5-minute integrated image, and on the right, a little bit of processing in the phone. That's really not a bad shot of the Dumbbell Nebula. And the Orion Nebula. On the left, 60 minutes of integration, and on the right, somebody from the C-Star group basically did some phone editing, 2 or 3 taps of phone editing, and that is the picture of the Orion image. This is amazing. The people that I have talked to, many of whom were skeptics like me, are shaking their heads and saying, I got one. So these are astronomers who own thousands of dollars worth of equipment who have bought these things and are really happy with them. Finally, just a picture of the moon. It comes with a solar filter, so you can take pictures of the sun too. It's really pretty amazing. Now, I am not recommending this. Do I have some reservations? I do have some reservations. It's plastic, the construction is relatively cheap. I don't know how long it'll last, but $400 to $500. You really can't go too wrong in spending that much money on something like this. My main objection to this is, as an old school, Jim, I'll get to you in a second, as an old school amateur astronomer, is that this type of astronomy bypasses the tradition of learning the night sky. People who use technology like this generally don't learn where the Andromeda galaxy is because they don't have to. I think that we lose something when people do not learn the constellations and do not learn their way around the night sky. But this is 2023. This is the way the world is headed, and who am I to resist? Jim, comment?
Yeah, I just want to say, I've got one too. I agree with everything you said.
I have one of those too. I agree with everything you said. They're not great on planets.
Yeah, the field is so wide that planets are going to be very, very tiny. So the moon and the sun, great, because the moon and the sun are big. Planets are very small. I expect C-STAR to address that shortcoming in the next release that we might see for next Christmas or even before. So this is, this is something that I'm paying attention to, because people that I've talked to who have used it or who own one are saying, this isn't like the garbage that was out last year and the year before that and the year before that. This is different. This is a game changer. Dave.
The club just bought a C-STAR. It's on back order, so it'll be a few months before it's here. But we've got one for the club now.
Yeah, I have eyepieces that are more expensive than that thing.
Lawrence.
One eyepiece, not several.
I got my C-STAR about a month ago, and I can confirm everything you said about it. You didn't mention it's a triplet. The optics are very good. But what I especially appreciate about it, also owning a Dwarf 2, is the fact that it's showing you exactly where things are. That sky catalog in tonight's best is wonderful.
Good.
It shows how many degrees above the horizon it is and what direction it's in. So if you've got a partially occluded field of view like most of us, it's really helpful.
Nice. Yeah, again, the ZWO people have really put together a nice package.
Does anybody want to buy our pad and give me theirs?
Okay, so binoculars, Star Tracker, or something newfangled and a little bit different that makes some of us uncomfortable, but is a really remarkable product. Those are three ways to get into the hobby, short of going out and buying the telescope that you're not sure about yet, because before you spend $2,000 or $3,000, you might want to spend a little bit more time with people like us. You can practically get this thing in a stocking, for heaven's sake. So you might want to think about it. That's the end of the presentation, well under 15 minutes. A couple questions, and then we'll split up.
I really like I've got a Meade astronomy binoculars, and I love them. And I mount them on my tripod. I'm just wondering, is there like an articulated kind of tripod that you can actually bring it down instead of trying to scoot your body up underneath the...
So go home and Google parallelogram binocular mount. And it's a construction that is literally a mechanical parallelogram that with the hinge system, that once your binoculars are on it and you aim at something and you lift it up, it keeps its aim. You drop it down and it keeps its aim. So the kids can look and then the adults can look. The parallelogram mounts are not that expensive. They're not that tough to learn how to use, and they have the beauty of being able to move the binoculars while maintaining what they're pointed at. Parallelogram mount.
And I do believe Orion sells those on their website at telescope.com too.
I think they're the only place that does. I've been looking recently.
Yeah, they had a standard size one. So Orion had a standard size one for standard size binoculars. Then I have the large giant binoculars, which is a 4-inch, and they had one for that. They discontinued that giant parallelogram, and I've been looking if there's any other company that has it, but I do have the giant parallelogram. So
doesn't the club have one?
Yes, we do. Yeah, Wire. There's one in the clubhouse at YRS.
And the parallelogram mount is something that you also frequently find on the used market. So if you know how to look for used astronomy gear, parallelogram mount mounts are good things to search for on the used market.
If you get it, do you then mount it on a tripod that you have?
Screws onto a standard tripod setting, yep. Jack?
Yeah, it's worth saying that keeping an eye on used markets is really good for your imagination. And I have had a fair amount of experience both selling equipment and buying equipment. And to put it bluntly, I've never been screwed. One place to look is called Cloudy Nights. And there's a very nice search box, and you can look for all sorts of stuff. I'm sure we could find 10 of those used from somebody who didn't like it. But that was, when I began looking at stuff that sells and the latest stuff, that was one really good place. John, where do you look for new equipment? Do you have a favorite spot?
For new equipment, I generally go to telescope.com, which is that Orion still?
Yes, that's Orion.
Yeah.
I do High Point Scientific as another really good one.
Yeah, but there are a lot of places
Yeah,
online.
there are.
Yeah.
Yes, High Point Scientific is in New Jersey, if anyone's curious.
That's a good question to talk, though, during our mingling and socializing tonight, is just to ask people where they buy stuff, because everything is bought and sold on the internet these days. But that's a good question. Lawrence, Jim?
Just while we're on the subject of binoculars, I don't know if they still make them, but there was a product where you mount the binoculars and look down onto a first surface mirror, so you can kind of sit it on like a picnic table and stargaze by looking down. And we have one of those in the back room. I can get it out if somebody wants to see it. We've never found it to be very useful, and I don't know if they actually make them, but it's another option for binoculars.
Terry.
Comment from Carol, who has a Sea Star. She said that it has a carbon fiber tripod, which is nice, but it is short. The pre-release price was $400, so it's $500 now with a solar filter. And people are now getting decent Jupiter video and Lucky imaging stacking.
Sea-Star excitement is building. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and arbitrarily stop us there. Just a couple of announcements about the food. Did I mention that we want you to eat the food? We do want you to eat the food. If you brought something tonight, thank you for bringing it. If you leave, we would prefer that you take it with you if it hasn't all been eaten. Anything that's left here at the end of the night, we'll do our best to get it to somebody who can use it, but most of us don't want to take this stuff home and put it in our kitchens. So, thank you for coming. Mingle, members, look for the people who have questions, and people who have questions, find members, pigeonhole, and get those conversations going. Thank you all for coming tonight.